Hey kids, it's Jurassic James. It's Jurassic Explains. Looking at a two-pack. It's the Jurassic World Epic Evolution line with Eoraptor here and I was control saying the name Stegouros right here. So this is literally a lot to unpack. There's these two animals. When I first saw them, I was excited because they are pretty cool species, and two, I was like, wait, why are they together? But they're smaller figures, so they're putting two together because they're to make it the price of one big figure. So we're going to start with Eoraptor and then go to Stegosaurus. Now, with that being said, we will use the official scissors of Jurassic James. I must also state that I do not have any other models of these two species, so for me they're exciting because they're a new species. Even though the Jurassic World-fied, they're not as scientifically accurate, they're still a new species. That's always fun. Okay, and it's very precisely, easy. That's one. Ooh. There we go. We'll get the other one later. So starting with Eoraptor. This is actually the one I got most excited about initially. So Eoraptor. Oh, the hands are... Okay, get to the point. So Eoraptor, meaning Dawn Thief. Now, the first thing to point out with the name is that the word raptor, I've said it before in videos, does not mean you're a dromaeosaur, the velociraptor, utahraptor, that group. Raptor means thief. There are many dinosaurs, thanks to a certain movie in the 90s, that because the word raptor became really famous from that movie, there's an animal in China called Sinoraptor, meaning Chinese thief. It is closer to an Allosaurus than anything near Dromaeosaurus. So the name doesn't always mean it's a actual raptor. Now, that being said, it's called that because in 1983, which is 30 years from this video being shot, 30 years ago, this was discovered in South America. And they were looking for Herrerasauruses, actually, which I'll go over that in a little bit. But they found an Eoraptor tooth in a rock. They were about to throw the rock away. Oh wait, it's a tooth there, and found not the entire animal, meaning that it was not complete, but it was pretty good for an animal, for a fossil. It was about this tall, like a foot and a half, like a foot and a half tall, about 3 feet long, very very small animal. And the big claim to fame for Eoraptor is that at the time of discovery, they looked at it, they assessed it, and said this is a theropod. In fact, not just a theropod; it is the oldest dinosaur known. Now, at the time. And I will do a video on a Herrerasaurus if you ask for it. Herrerasaurus is a group of that they are, I don't want to say primitive, they're so basal that they're not considered, even though they look like theropod predatory dinosaurs, they are not. They're kind of a basic group. And Eoraptor looks like them, but even more so. It lacks certain hinges in his jaw and things like that. So Eoraptor was initially thought to be the very first dinosaur, the most primitive dinosaur. I can't say very first because they were actually contemporaries, and there were other dinosaurs in the area, or dinosaur morphs in the area. But that was his main thing initially. And so I have here, I brought from work, my 3D printed copy of an Eoraptor skull. My friend George Plata, he painted it for me. And so the skull, I mean, it's pretty, this is 1-to-1 scale. It's the actual size. You see my head, well, the scale of my head. Not that you know how big my head is. That, you can't measure that. Anyway, the point is, it's a pretty, you can see where this animal, you look at it, you're thinking, oh, it's an early theropod predatory thing. But looking at its teeth, some of the teeth are for eating meat and some for eating plants, and or at least omnivorous. Well, I say plants because there weren't any fruit back then. Which were plants. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is the teeth weren't just for ripping and tearing flesh, and so it's considered to be an omnivore because it ate a little bit of everything. It was not the big. It was not even the. It wasn't the biggest predator's environment. There were other animals that were way bigger. So, before I get to the environment and everything, I will tell you one last thing that was really excitingly annoying. Is that after reassessment, there's another animal called, I think it's Eudromaeus, Eodromaeus, basically. And that animal is clearly a really primitive theropod, right? So it made them look back at this skeleton and go, wait a minute, let's look at it again. And it turns out Eoraptor is considered to be an early sauropodomorph. Now you're saying, what does that mean? Well, I mean, what's going on here? I'll explain. Let me put you down for a second. And so in Dinosauria, we have your theropods, your meat eaters, from tiny little raptors to big little rexes and so on. The sauropods, or sauropodomorph, the long necks for the most part, and these two are in a group called Saurischia, the lizard-hipped dinosaurs. The other group of dinosaurs are called Ornithischia, the bird-hipped dinosaurs. That includes, for the most part, your stegosaurs, like this, your ankylosaurs, like Ankylosaurus. Oh, names and who are these people? So this is a Albertosaurus from 22 Safari, so it's kind of a newer metal. Diplodocus company is, let's see, 2018. This is one of my favorite Stegosaurus actually. This Stegosaurus is 2019 Safari, and this Ankylosaurus is 2018 Safari. So these are Thyrea 4, the shield bearers. The Marginocephala, the armored, the horned dinosaurs, and Ornithopoda are the duckbills and iguanodonts. And this one is a 2009 Collect A. So it's actually the Cretosaurus. And this is a Torosaurus. The year is 2011. And the company is Collect A. So the duckbill dinosaurs and the theropods, the horned dinosaurs, Marginocephala, Ceratopsia, and Thyrea 4, these are all called the Ornithians, the bird hip dinosaurs. So, because Eoraptor was very, very, earlier in the family tree, it thought that it was the ancestor to all dinosaurs. But now, and again, it was often put closer, well, it was first described with theropods. It's one of the early theropods, but also saying it's so early, so primitive, and it'd be the oldest dinosaur ever. And so now it's been reassessed to be a sauropodomorph, meaning that this group, he's actually an early member of the long-necked dinosaur group. Now, you're saying, how? And I'll give you the example, and I understand it's very upsetting, but when you're looking at the early members of any group, they're not as well defined. And what I mean by that is, we actually write papers and define them, but what I'm saying is, you look at these extant members, the last members of the groups usually, and they are very different and diversified, and derived is the word we use actually. But when you go back in time and see their ancestry, they start looking very similar because, of course, there is common ancestry in dinosaurs, and they're diverging out and creating different features, and they're adapting to different environments. And so, when I first read that, I was like, okay, I get it, but let me explain it to you. So, for example, we look at this horned dinosaur like this Torosaurus and this Cretosaurus, and like, how are those close related to everyone else? Well, you look at this Stegosaurus, this is a 2017 Safari. This guy is a early relative or close relative of the horned dinosaurs. It's walking on two legs like an arthropod. It doesn't have frills and horns, at least visible. There's the making of the base of a frill in the back of the skull. But overall, it's, you look at this guy, you're like, well, who's his relative? And to the untrained eye, I would imagine someone say, oh, this guy, they're very similar. They're even the same color, which doesn't really matter because they're toys, but humans tend to do that. And so the idea here is that if you were to look at this guy, yes, there are small anatomical features that say, oh, this thing is closer to this than that. And that's what people in paleontology just mainly do, like the really niche group of people who do this for a living. That's what they do. So with Eoraptor, it has traits leaning more to sauropodomorph, which means, of course, that sauropods, we think of these giant, bigger than elephant, telementine animals, their ancestors would have been on two legs. In fact, all of our ancestors would have been on two legs, and around the same time, in the Jurassic period, would have had a very similar lifestyle. Some, began eating more meat, and they went that route and became theropods. Some eating more plants, or got heavier, went on all four. And so that's what we're looking at when we are trying a big picture of things. But I don't want to always focus on the animal's evolutionary importance. I must also point out the fact that this is an animal worth noting. This animal lived in its own time. It did not live thinking one day my descendants would be giant sauropods, the biggest animals. No, it's its own little animal. So first and foremost, its anatomy, what I like, is the hands missed it by that much. So we mentioned dinosaur hands. Most predatory dinosaur hands, you see, they start with 5 and they lose them. They usually have the 3 claws. Predatory dinosaurs all have, or actually, dinosaurs have usually 3 claws. If there's a 4th finger, it's usually a nubbin, or I call it's not an official term, but it's usually a nub and it's not clawed. So Eoraptor had 3 clawed fingers. The other 2, now when I always do this, I always tuck it away where you can't see it. There would have been 2 other fingers, but they weren't clawed. So they had 5 fingers. The toy has only 4, and all 4 have claws. So that's you missed it by that much. And so that's kind of annoying. Oh, right, for the kids who watched it, here's the DNA code. That's apparently important to you. And so that's kind of annoying. But like I said, it's overall, and it's a neat little figure. Like I said, the animal would have been about this tall, this long in real life. But who to live with, right? Where's this environment like? So looking at late Jurassic period, so I'm going to make an establishment and then explain why. So I often will talk about the late Jurassic North America. You've seen it walking with dinosaurs. The Chinle Formation, you have and this is Jurassic World, Postosuchus, Safari Postosuchus. So these guys are in the northern hemisphere. You have dinosaurs like Coelophysis. We have here Tuana, little predators in this area. In New Mexico, you have Desmatosuchus. You have the this is I think Bully Land, and it's yeah, wait, Bully Land? Is it Bully Land? No, Schlei. Sorry, Schlei. And so this is I always say jokingly, it is a plant-eating crocodile. It is not a crocodile, but they're in the branch of archosaur. Archosaur meaning ruling reptiles that includes dinosaurs and birds. There's like two major branches. This is the crocodile branch and the dinosaur branch. And the question is where these other guys fall in that branch. So this one falls closer to the crocodile side than it is the dinosaur side, whereas these guys are on the dinosaur side, right? Posterius from Dino Riders is a mammal-like reptile, Therapsid. The term mammal-like reptile is a bad term, but people know it, so Therapsid is the proper term. And so these guys, oh, and the Rudiodon, the phytosaur. These guys are North American species. They're really well known. Everyone likes them. They're in documentaries and TVs and pictures, and that's what you're seeing in North America. So for you guys, from your perspective, here's the northwest of Pangea. In Europe, we have animals like Plateosaurus, which I've already done a Plateosaurus video. This is, oh my goodness, the lights, all the lights here, I can't see sometimes. Let's see, let's focus on it. It is a Collect A, 2011. Why did I just find this recently? Anyway. And so we have this guy, and we have a Lilian sternus, which is like the Coelophysis equivalent across the pond. Of course, back then there was no pond. It is a Bully Land figure. It's kind of an older figure, actually. They don't make those anymore. And we have, let's see, 2010, Collect A, Lufendosaurus, which is another kind of sauropod morph. And so these guys are in Europe. This is North America. And then losing out, and Eoraptors from South America. Now, one thing to point out too is that when I'm describing this, I want to point out to you that I say North America, South America. It was Pangea. It was all together. Now, many people will tell you in documentaries, oh, if you were in what we call New York today, you could walk to England. Yes, you could. But when Pangea crashed together, when it formed, the ocean basins were crushed and uplifted into mountains, which is why you often find ocean fossils and mountaintops, because the ocean environment's there. Here's North America, here's Europe. Well, back then we referred to it as Laurentia instead of North America. This is Baltic instead of Europe. And they crashed together, and the ocean altitude is called the Iapetus, and it got pushed up and pushed up and pushed up into these big mountain ranges. So yes, you could have walked across, but there was a mountain between you two. Same thing with South America. You could have walked from North America to South America, but there's a mountain between the two of you. So this all crashed together. And of course, the mountain range broke apart. Well, part of it, Appalachian still exists. This is before Pangea. Yeah, Appalachian Mountains are part of that process. It broke apart over here, and now you have the Atlantic Ocean, right? Same thing with the Gulf right here. The point I'm trying to make is where Eoraptor lives, we have a different assortment of animals. First and foremost, instead of having Placeres, this Therapsid, this animal that essentially is a relative of mammals, one of the known herbivores are these guys here called Hydapodon. Hydapodons are a kind of reptile that are not. Today we think about what's it? Turtles, lizards, squamatas, lizards and snakes, and then archosaurs, crocodiles. They're in a different group of reptile entirely, and so they are herbivores that are found here. Again, most depictions of them have their arms kind of splayed out. This toy is more upright. Of course, Herrerasaurus was a larger predator. These aren't not to scale. Now, I've done a video on Prestosuchus from the middle of Triassic. This is late Triassic, found in Argentina. What is part of Argentina? They have a relative of Postosuchus and Prestosuchus, Prestosuchus, that's called Sarcosuchus, and there is no Sarcosuchus. Yeah, because I'm thinking the other one from North Africa. So they have a relative of theirs that lives in the environment, the biggest of the group, and those guys have no toys. So this is representing a large, what was historically called a Rasuchian, these large, upright, croc-like animals. Anyway, let's see what else we have here. Okay, these two animals are from the Permian, the Dicynodont and this little animal here. They are not from the late Triassic, but they look like animals that live with Eoraptor. So I'm using here as like a physical example. This guy particularly being a relative of this Placeres. And so these are animals too. Let's see what else we have here. And finally, there are a number of things called dinosauromorphs. And the question of where do dinosaurs come from and who they evolved from and all that, big debate, big questions, big individuals being found, or not big, they're all small actually. But the idea here is that these animals are not fully hitting all the criteria to be a dinosaur, but they're clearly not just another crocodile thing. So I'm using this Dinosaur Coelophysid 08 looking thing to represent that group. And so this is the world that Eoraptor lived in, and this is how it existed. And so for the most part, it's Europe, North America, South America, again, all fused together in Pangea. So it's a really important animal for multiple reasons. But like I said, it's something that we don't see. We don't see. And again, there's different subdivisions of time in the late Jurassic. And by the time this video goes up, you can go. I'm gonna put a link below. You can go to my Jurassic page on my website. You can see the Jurassic period and all the little critters where they're from. And you'll see these guys distributed to time and location. But anyway, so that's Eoraptor in a nutshell. There's a lot more to it, of course, because it's an amazing little animal, but I have to go over the other guy because we don't want to have a 40-minute long video. I mean, I could do that, but I'm pretty sure most of you will pass out by between now and then. If you want a video on Herrerasaurus, let me know, because I do have a lot of, not a lot, but I have some Herrerasaurus figures. It's a very important animal. I did do a video on it, but in the video, when I filmed it, I did not know I had a piece of food in my face, and I did not know that, and so I was like, let's not put that video out there for you forever and ever. It wasn't food, it was like a little lamp, my beard. Anyway, because food would be kind of gross. So, now, that is Eoraptor in a nutshell. This is the Dawn Thief. Now, an early member of Sauropod Morph, now a relative. Oh, speaking of that, before I move on fully. Frankly, on my website I still have it that way, but there are a group called Neosauropoda. When you think of long necks, they're sauropods. Particularly Neosauropoda, the ones like Diplodocus and Camera, all those guys. There's a term that I still kind of use on my website, but it's kind of outdated. It's called Prosauropoda. And so these guys here, and I've discussed this, I believe, in my Plateosaurus video, but the idea is that these guys here, the name Prosauropod implies that they evolve into these. And some relatives may have, we don't know, it's been debated, but they are their own little group, and they're their own kind of major group. And so Eoraptor is now in the Sauropod Morpha. That's the way of saying it's just something in this grouping of animals that these are more related to each other than everything else in Dinosauria, right? That's all that says. Now, with that being said, we're going to move on to our next little buddy. Let's see, that's you, and you, there, and there you are. So, next we have Stegouros. So where are my official scissors, Jurassic James? Double opening. Congratulations, kids. First in there, well, I'm pretty sure I did it before, but not the same package. Or maybe I did. I don't know. I can't remember. There's a lot of videos on my channel. Let's see. Missed it? Nope. Got both. Stegouros. Now, one thing to point out with these two animals, I was like, why are they, other than size, why are they packaged together? And I realized because this guy lives in the late Triassic, 200, I think, 30-some million years ago. This guy lives in late Cretaceous, like 71 million years ago. So they're not from the same time. And then I realized, oh, they're both from South America. That's probably what it is. I mean, not assuming they put thought into this to put them together, or they're just like, they're both small things. I don't know. Because in real life, they were both very small animals. So, what I mean by that, this one, of course, I mentioned earlier, is like 1.5 feet and 3 feet long. This one is like 4 feet tall and like 6 feet long. That's still small for what it is. What is it? I'm glad you asked. This is an Ankylosaur. Now, I will show for the kids that thing they care about. Yeah, there it is. There's that DNA code thing here. Now, looking at this little guy, what makes this special, among other things, is this really weird tail. Now, I'm going to try. The Aztecs have a term, or a weapon. The makiwit? I can't. The point is, it's like a big stick with pieces of obsidian blades sticking out of it, like on both sides. It's a big weapon. And this looks just like that. Now, it is. I mentioned earlier, it's an Ankylosaur. What does that mean? It can move its legs, like it can kind of run. Its tail can do this. It's from Chile, which back then, Chile, South America, you think it's the west coast of South America. It was further south back then. It was closer to the Antarctica. And so, where does he fit in? Now, the group is called Thyrea-4. Thyrea-4 means shield bearers. So that includes the Stegosaurus and Ankylosaurus. So Stegosaurus, like our Stegosaurus and our Papokintrosaurus, are very clearly important, well-known, defined group. The Ankylosaurs, on the other hand, are sometimes harder to to identify and classify sometimes, because just like the Hadrosaurs have different head crests, the different shaped crests have different species, the horned dinosaurs have different frill shapes and everything like that. The Ankylosaurus armor plating or osteoderms are aligned differently, and occasionally they'll they die, they get kind of disassociated or whatever. So it's hard to kind of figure out how they look. And then you get some like Boreopelta, and you're like, oh yeah, exactly. It was half mummified. Of course, it's I did a bit of that guy already. So in the Ankylosaurs, for the most part, there are two major branches. The Nodosaurs, like the Boreopelta, have no club, right? And they usually have more armor in the front by their heads and necks, and more narrow, kind of tapered off snouts. Another example of that is the Edmontonia, the last of this line. This is a Collect A 2010. I don't know of any mini Edmontonia figures, so just FYI. And so these are the Nodosaurs for the most part. The Ankylosaurs, the ones you're thinking of, the big group, include the Euoplocephalus, the most copied Kylosaurs out there. This is I think it's Baton, right? Baton, from I thought from Target. There's no year on there, but it's not recent. And the Safari, if I remember correctly, Ankylosaurus 2018. So they have the club tails. They have they have a beak, but their mouths are more wider. Different kind of feeding strategy there, because these two were contemporaries actually, which means they live together at the same time in the same place. And so these are the two major branches of Ankylosaur, but there are some weirdos. Now, there are some animals that don't quite fit in. So Scelatosaurus, found in England, I think did I do a video of this guy? Fun animal because it was found in marine sediment, and so it means the animal died, washed up to sea, and sank to the bottom of the ocean. So kind of cool. I mean, it died. That's not cool. But the point is, this guy is from these are late Cretaceous. Oh, late Cretaceous or Cretaceous. This is early Jurassic, so it's before even these guys. And so it's in the Ankylosaurus line, the Stegosaurus line. And so what's going on here is that there's another animal I have here, two Jurassic World ones, and there's the, what is this, Safari? No, Collect A. Again, they always keep hitting them, it's a great group. So 2010, no, is that a 10? It's so tiny. 2000 wow, that little, it's like the plastic's warped or something. I'm going to say 20. Minmi from Australia. And so, they have told you historically, Ankylosaurs are known from the Northern Hemisphere, particularly North America and Asia. But we have found a few in the Southern Hemisphere, particularly Minmi in Australia, and our guy here, Stegouros. Stegouros means roofed. Stego means roof, tail. So, Stegosaurus means roof lizard because these big plates look like roof tile. Stegouros means roof tail because it looks like a roof of a building. The plate, those call this tile thing on the roof. And so there are there's one in Antarctica, you never know where he's from, Antarctopelta from Antarctica, who's closer related to this guy than Minmi. But because of this new find, they have actually said, hey, who are they, right? In paleontology, the publications are suggesting that there's a new group of Ankylosaurs called Para-Ankylosaurs. So they're not directly these guys. It's another branch. And para means besides. So there's Saurolophus and Parasaurolophus, right? So it's a different kind of animal, right? So still, they share a common ancestry, not so much with the Stegosaurs, but the Stegosaurs are an outlier, and then these guys are their own group. But they're still their own little kind of group, and they're here. And so the idea here is that it's something that's different and diverse, and you don't often see that in Ankylosaurs. I mean, we see a lot of, to the average person, sauropods are all the same. You see a lot more diversity in sauropods, predators, but for the Ankylosaurs, you're seeing more diversity here. First of all, you're in South America, so its main contemporaries would have been, this is late towards the end, so I think at that point most of the large car dinosaur kind of predators have died out. But there's still some Abelisaurs, there's still some other things here. We now know that there may have been a few duck-billed dinosaurs found in South America. Raptors, dromaeosaurs have been found, which is kind of a new thing. As of right now, no ceratopsians, no horned dinosaurs in the Southern Hemisphere. So that's kind of a thing still. But it's a kind of a neat animal in its own right because it has this, it breaks the rules, not rules, it breaks the pattern we've seen, and then also it has made us redefine or make a new group of dinosaurs, which is kind of cool. I mean, it's a group within a group, still, but the idea is that this guy is really neat for that, important in an evolutionary sense. In this environment, most of the other animals found there are fragmented, so we can kind of tell what family group they're with, but not the actual animal with a name yet. There's papers being written all the time. The question, of course, is this giant weapon here. Well, not giant. It's only, well, the weapon's only about that big, but the animal's not, this whole big. Is it going at, the first thing we always think is going to be using it to fight off large predators. And the answer is it's so tiny, it probably just ran. Or when, But also what's important is that the two arguments is this. Whenever you see anything that's this unique, there's two lines of thought. This is the last concept. Either mate selection or for reproduction purposes, or fighting predators. And we often want to go to fighting predators. There's this image in people's minds, in movies and TV, where these dinosaurs are constantly battling out. But if you ever go to like any natural area, a reserve or savannah, whatever, there's not constant fights and battles. The animals aren't, it's pretty chill, and then a predator tries something and it either succeeds or doesn't, So the idea here is that with this guy is that any of the really, really big predators, it would have definitely probably not interacted with very much. But what's more important than that is that its defense may have also been not just for fighting off things based on the studies in the tail, but also could have been mate selection to show off. And that's something that if you look at particularly birds, it's more, not obvious, but it's more easily studied in birds, that they're using their tails and things to display, and that's not just the physical form, and they're building nests and doing dances and stuff too, but it's not a huge stretch to think of this animal that during the time of year, it's particularly probably the males are taking their tail and they're waving them around a certain way, they're moving them certain ways to show, because like a peacock's tail, and the example I give is a peacock's tail is a burden all year long. This is a giant thing you have to maintain and keep protected. But one day a year, the feathers go up and they dance, and the females are like, "Oh my goodness!" So the idea here is, this obviously may have been used for it's full of bone for defense, but also it may have been used to display, as I call it, to get girlfriends kind of thing. And so anyway, that is Stegouros for the most part. There's more to the story. If there are more figures, I'll do a part 2. And this is a long video, but they were packaged together, and this is a very iconic dinosaur. 30 years since we discovered the first Eoraptor. And so that's why it took longer, but that's their story in a nutshell, and I'll see you next week. We're going to go over Poposaurus. Real name.